Do you struggle with persevering in business? Do you find yourself feeling disappointed often or often thinking about how things could be better and therefore having a crummy mindset in order to move forward? Today on the Possibility Mom Live, we are going to talk about how to persevere in business. How to persevere in business. This is the topic for today's podcast. And before we jump into this, I got to say thank you. Last weekend, I had the Possibility Mom Live, and it was honestly, I think, the best content I have ever presented. It was such a unique roundup of compelling thought leaders and compelling content. Like, I loved the people. All of the people I gathered for this summit, I have sincere affection for. Like, I think they're interesting. I think they are challenging. They are helpful to me in my life. And some of the things that we discussed on this last summit, I hope, my prayer is that they have lasting impact. Like, my hope is that these concepts that Henry Katarna, for example, has put forward around this Catholic economy. I just did a amazing, if I may say, hour-long interview with him for his podcast. I want to encourage you to check out the Catholic economy, the Catholic CEO podcast. We had a really great conversation that expanded very much on the things that he and I have spoken about. This concept of a non-binary approach to work and family, where so much of the drama comes from feeling like there has to be balance or there has to be some kind of equitable, I don't know, like very compartmentalized in your mind type of thing, and just lots of challenging discussion on that. There was a lot of chat about perseverance and a lot of chat about storytelling, a lot of chat about obviously mindset, but in relationship to knowing your worth, knowing your value, knowing your customer's problem. But the thing that resonated with me the most on this summit was perseverance. And there were just some beautiful things. Mary Lenneberg talked about how perseverance is surrender in action. Everybody, listen to that. Perseverance is surrender in action. And so that is what I want to tackle today in this podcast. My hope is that this is a podcast that you can return to, that you can send to a friend when somebody has a launch that doesn't go well, when somebody has a webinar and nobody buys. If you launch a product and absolutely nobody comes and takes a look at it, if you do something and you don't receive any feedback on it, I hope this is the kind of podcast that you return to again and again for encouragement, but also for just a good kick in the pants. And so let's get into it. I've got several points that I want to make with you here today. Point number one on how to persevere in business is to accept that challenge is a reality. This is something that I have been struggling with a lot. And I think this is like my choleric temperament, my love of planning, a little bit of my perfectionistic, kind of tendencies. I really like things to be good. I really like things to be delivered well. And I sometimes have trouble accepting that that is just not the way the world works. Like, it's just not possible for number one, perfection to exist. Like, that's just not possible because something can always be made more perfect except for Jesus. But like, I sometimes have a hard time accepting that simply there is going to be challenge. And it's funny because I don't mind talking about this to my clients. I don't mind when I do my group coaching and Wealth Without Guilt. I don't mind telling people and encouraging others that, hey, this is just a reality we can't argue with. But when I look at myself, my business, and many things in my life, I don't have that same tolerance, if I'm being honest. Like I'm like, nope, that's not reality. I do not accept that there are going to be challenges. And so this is just a reality we cannot fight with. It is simply a reality that challenge does exist in the world. And I'm not even talking like suffering. You've heard me talk a lot on this podcast about suffering. I'm just talking challenges. Like it is simply challenging to build a website. Like, and I'm not even trying to be like a mindset coach about it. I'm just like, there are many steps to building something like an online summit or something like a website or building a product for the first time. It's just reality. Yes, we can think different things for our approach, for our mindset, so that something can be enjoyable or what have you. But it is just a fact. It is simply just a reality that business has challenge to it. So that is number one, to accept that challenge is simply a reality and that this reality can include failure. And so, my next point I want to make on how to persevere in business is to expect there will always be a 10%. I want to expand on this. So, part of the reason that I created this podcast today, spoiler alert again, if you haven't heard me say it before, I create content from my life. So when I am creating content, it is most typically because I'm going through it in the moment. And so there was a bit of a technical challenge with my summit this time around. There's always a technical challenge. Sometimes it's egregious and really, really, disappointing. And sometimes it's not so disappointing. This one was in my mind really disappointing. And then it was so interesting. I got coached. I invest in a coach, and this coach asked me for a percentage. She was like, "Okay, you've told me that there was a tech challenge in your recent summit. What was the percentage out of 100? What would you say was the percentage of challenge?" And it was such a helpful question to get me to be a little bit more objective and less dramatic in my mind about the tech challenge, because the reality is 90% of the summit was tech free and 10% had a little bit of a tech hiccup. When I was able to articulate that it was 10%, first of all, like I said, it took me to a much less dramatic place. And then, secondly, my coach offered back to me, what if you could simply expect that 10% every single time you do anything in your business? This was enormously helpful to me in persevering. Because again, going back to point one, it is a reality. Challenge is a reality. And so instead of fighting it, can we expect it? Can we plan for it? Yes. Have we gained some very valuable lessons for the next time we do a summit? Absolutely. Do I learn something every single time I host something of this magnitude, of this amount of moving parts? 100%. There will always be a 10%. We can plan for it, but then we should also expect it. Which leads me to point number 3 on persevering, which is to pray deliverance prayers. What do I mean by deliverance prayers? I mean, there is a little black book called Deliverance Prayers by Father Chad Ripperger. I never know how to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry, Father Chad. Ripperger. It's something like that. And it has a beautiful collection of prayers that are meant to protect you, your family, your home, all the things, and your business. You can pray these prayers of protection for your business because I am guessing if you are listening to my podcast, you are a person who desires to build the kingdom, to make impact, to help people's lives, and to help people's lives where it matters most. And where do you think the devil is going to pay attention? I like to say, "Hey, I like to tell the devil, like, I'm not this important, leave me alone." But the reality is these things exist. Going back to point 1, accept the challenge of the reality. This is a reality. Spiritual warfare is real. And so I would encourage you to grab his book, there are many other prayers that exist in our Catholic experience, in the Christian lexicon, so to speak, or vernacular. These, there are beautiful prayers for protection that exist that I want to encourage you to constantly pray, to get other people to pray for, because again, it's a reality that we must accept. And tied hand in hand with this is to develop a habit of trust. This phrase, I have a feeling, is going to become an important phrase in the future of my work. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. Sometimes the Lord is a lamp unto my feet, and I can only see like 3 feet ahead of me. And then sometimes He takes the camera and puts it right in front, and it's like floodgates, and I can see everything. This is one of those times where I'm like, okay, Lord, like make it more clear, widen that view whenever you want to. But this point is developing a habit of trust. And what do I mean by that? Spiraling these negative thoughts, these feelings and thoughts of like, I cannot endure anymore. There's no way I can fight. I'm so exhausted, blah, blah, blah. Every time, like, just pay attention, get curious about these patterns of when you say stuff like that. And then can you develop literally the habit, the same way that you might have the spiraling habit, or the same way that you have the habit of, eating chocolate when you're stressed, or, opening the fridge when you're bored? Can you develop the habit of, I will trust you, Lord, and look at how many ways that you have shown me that I can trust you. This is a habit. A very practical thing I like to give my clients sometimes is to do what we call in the coaching world a thought download of all the ways that the Lord has shown you you can trust Him, and continue to develop that evidence more and more and more to the point where it just becomes a habit. The same way that there were things in the past that perhaps if you were like a nail biter, you eventually learned how to develop the habit of not biting your nails. Or perhaps if you, like me right now, I recently quit dairy for the sake of my baby. That was a difficult thing to give up, but he does not tolerate dairy very well in his little tummy. It makes him very gassy. And so I developed the habit of not eating dairy. It is completely possible to hardwire in you a new habit. And developing the habit of trust in the Lord is no exception to that. Linked with this is this concept of preparing a thought in advance to combat the spiral. And this is point number 5. And this is leaning very much in my mindset coaching training. And I want to go back to this coaching experience that I had recently, where my coach invited me to consider that 10%, the 10% to expect it. She also invited me to, um, again, like pay attention to my thoughts. And I want to offer you what happened in that coaching session because it was very powerful. So I was talking about how it feels like a fight. It feels like there's just like no way I can keep fighting. I was so discouraged about the tech challenges again, and so on and so forth. Like just like a lot of drama around it and a lot of discouragement and disappointment. And she was like, okay, what is it you're picturing? And when you're talking about this, like what is the visual that's coming to mind? Because we think in pictures. It's very, very interesting to ponder that concept. And I was just like, I'm holding a heavy sword and I cannot fight anymore. I'm like dragging that sword on the ground. And as I sort of continued to go inside of my imagination and she was coaching me through this, she was like, you're not alone, right? Like, you're not fighting alone. You know that you have, the Holy Spirit. You have the grace as the true change agent. You know that Jesus has already fought so many battles for you and won. And so then this picture in my mind started turning into, and I get emotional just talking about it because I can feel so defeated in my business. Like I can just feel so um I can very quickly go to a familiar place of despair. It's a very familiar habit for me that I am, of course, doing all the work to try and develop more of a habit of trust. But I can very, very quickly go to a place of despair. And so, in my mind's eye, in this place of imagination, I'm picturing this sword, and I just pictured Jesus like coming almost like alongside me and picking up the sword and giving me so much strength to fight. And this is the reality. Like, this is not just an imagination in my brain. This is not just like a Lisa Canning made up concept. We all have Jesus Christ in our corner, and he has already fought the battle and won. And so it was really interesting. And I'm going to have to like reflect on this more and maybe like actually do a little bit more coaching because my coach was actually encouraging me to think about potentially dropping the idea of fighting because she was like, I wonder if that's actually what's causing you the most exhaustion. Like, what if it's actually not a fight? And instead, you're just able to walk through the windy road that is maybe sometimes slippery and maybe sometimes full of challenge, but you're able to just walk through it. I'm playing with that a little bit because my competitive personality, my I think like the strategy in me, the fight actually I think is a motivating thing for me. So I'm going to play with that a little bit more. I'll share with you later where I land on that. But just to prepare a thought in advance to combat the spiral. And so the thought that I prepared for as a result, or the thought that came out of this coaching call that I'm going to experiment using again and again. This is similar to, if you recall, if you've been listening to me for a while, I had a thought last year that really helped me. Making money is fun and easy. And I have a feeling that this is going to become another thought like that that's going to have a massive change in my life. That's the prayer, at least. And the thought is, I business is a fight, and I'm not fighting alone. Like, even when I say it, it produces so much consolation. Business is a fight, and I'm not fighting alone. Um, Again, I'm gonna play with that and we'll see what happens. Again, fighting might not be the best thing to explore, but I want to invite you to try that thought on for size and let me know. Come, contact me on Instagram at Lisa Canning. Let me know if that thought works for you. Business is a fight, and I'm not fighting alone. Jesus is fighting with me. Point number 6. Remember that you do not fight alone. Oh, sorry. I was supposed to talk about that here, but that's that. We just do not. That is the truth. And it makes me think of this point that my coach gave me. She was like, "And you're going to be okay." That was the thought that she added on when I was like, business is a fight and I do not fight alone. And she was like, "And I want you to remember that you're going to be okay. You're not in actual peril. You're not in actual danger. It might feel like that, but that you're going to be okay." And where this becomes again in reality, like in our humanness, we need these reminders. We need these very human reminders. And so, my final points are very much around the human reminder. So, point number 7 in my collection of points to help you persevere is to find your support network. And may I encourage you to find people who are growth minded, meaning they are going to help you with your thoughts. They're not going to be the kind of people who just sort of say like, I don't know, I'm talking like people who can honor your emotions, who can empathize and not dismiss the emotions that you're having because that is so important. It's okay that I was disappointed. Like it's totally okay. I have no drama. And in fact, I know what happens when you squash those feelings. We have got to get comfortable with not so great emotions. The discomfort of emotions is so challenging, but truly necessary for our growth. It is where we meet Jesus. Like, just think about that for a minute. That is where intimacy occurs. That is where true growth, true personal development, true transformation occurs in that challenging, stretching, and intimacy with the cross. But our humanness, we need a little support in this area. So find your support network of great growth minded people who will honor your emotions, but at the same time, help you to remember the truth of who you are. I need to be reminded about the truth that I am a fighter. I have to be reminded about the truth that I have been called to this fight, you know? And that's, I think, again, peeling back the curtain on my recent coaching session, I kept saying to my coach, like, that I I feel called to this fight. That's why I think the word fight actually is a good word for me. I feel called to it. Sometimes I wish I was called to a more simple existence. Sometimes I wish I was called to something that maybe didn't require as much fight. But ultimately, this is where I have discerned and where I continue to feel the Lord is calling me to show up, dukes up, and keep going, keep fighting. And so to have a support network to remind you of who you really are, that you are capable, that you are qualified, that you're not going to be alone, and that you are going to be okay is so helpful. And then finally, and this is one that was introduced to me, I can't remember exactly who introduced this to me, but I'm so grateful for this. I call it on my computer, Yay Lisa. And I want to encourage you to do the same, a Yay You folder, where you have a collection of messages, you have a collection of maybe testimonials, you have a collection of things that have been, said about you that remind you of who you really are. So I literally have a folder of Facebook messages, of comments on my public Facebook, wall. I have videos of testimonials from my clients. I have Amazon reviews. I have random things like that that I just continue to build this Yay Lisa folder. And when I am discouraged, when I feel like I have no more energy to fight, when I have a lack of perseverance and I just want to, throw in the towel, I'll pull up this Yay Lisa folder and simply, read it to find some encouragement. On Instagram the other day, it was right after all this tech stuff had happened. And I was particularly, discouraged. And um, two things happened on Instagram that I just want to share with you. Thing number one was this beautiful mom went on a story and just simply shared heartfelt thanks. We had never really interacted before. She was not like a friend of a friend. She was a stranger. And she just so from like a place that I could tell was so authentic and so from the heart shared how my summit had impacted her. And it just encouraged me so greatly. And I just like, and she was naming really specific things from the summit that she described has now changed her life. And then interestingly, the tech issues. I received another message from a beautiful mom on Instagram who literally said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know because of the tech challenges that you expressed, and as a result of the tech challenges, we subsequently gave everybody an extra day to take in the content for free." And so she was like, "Hey, because of the tech challenges that you experienced, I was able to go through, you know, blank number of the interviews, and I can't tell you how much those touched my heart." And this particular mom ended up making a Instagram post of what I shared with you that Mary Lenneberg said perseverance is surrender in action. And that helped other people. And I just, again, you never know what the result will be of your perseverance, either for your personal sanctity, for your personal growth, or for the sanctity and growth of other people. I'm going to say that one more time. You may never know. Okay, so yes, you might be able to fill a yay you folder, but there's probably out there tons of things that could go in that folder that you will never know about. But you may never know what the result of your perseverance will do for your personal sanctity and growth, or for the personal sanctity and growth of someone else. And I think that is just the best place to land this conversation. Perseverance requires enormous strength. Perseverance requires a shift in mindset. Perseverance requires some tactical actions to occur. And I hope this podcast is one that you can come back to again and again whenever you are feeling like you can't go on, whenever you are feeling like you have no more fight. I hope this blesses you. If you like this podcast, I invite you to send it to a friend, and a reminder that this is the kind of mindset work, the kind of encouragement, and the kind of thought work that I do weekly inside of my group coaching program, Wealth Without Guilt. Like I mentioned, I receive coaching myself because I see what it does for my life. And that investment in the coach of that thought, like fighting. I like business is a fight, but I do not fight alone. Jesus fights with me. That consolation that provides, that motivation can change everything in a person's business. I shared on my conference last weekend, making money is fun and easy. I shared the exact numbers, like how it tripled my income by one single thought. And so, if you want to join me, if this is your season, if you feel like this is what I want this transformation, there is a spot that we are saving for you inside of Wealth Without Guilt. And you can join me by clicking the link in the description below wherever you are watching this. My friends, thank you so much. Cheers to fighting the good fight. You do not fight alone. You have Jesus fighting with you, and I am in your corner always.